Hello and welcome to the People's Mic, hosted by the New Britain branch of the NAACP. We welcome you into this conversation and into this space. I am the Reverend Dr. Jonathan D. Counts, the pastor of the Spotswood AME Zion Church in New Britain, Connecticut, and I'm also a social worker as well. On this show today, we have Anari Douglas, who is a student, a current college student at Central State University here in Connecticut, and she also graduated from the New Britain public school system. We also have Spencer Williams, who is an educator from our school district, and we also have Ms. Jan Edwards, who is the president of the New Britain branch of the NAACP. So at this time, we're going to welcome the president of our NAACP here in New Britain, Ms. Jan Edwards, and she will open us up during this show.
Good evening, everybody. How are you? So this is such a great opportunity for the New Britain branch of the NAACP to be here speaking on behalf of the education system, or not on behalf of the education system, but speaking for the education system in New Britain, Connecticut. And so we really just want to talk about the pillar of education and why is it so important. So NAACP, that's one of our pillars in reference to education. It is to break down systemic barriers in our disenfranchised neighborhoods, and also just really uplift people and help them understand the importance of education in our community. And so I'm really thrilled to be here tonight with these great folks, and I look forward to this conversation. Thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Wonderful, wonderful. So we celebrate our president of the New Britain branch of the new NAACP. She's doing an amazing job. She has set great vision for us, and we are excited because we are on fire and we are ready to go. So during this conversation today, we are very passionate about education. We understand the current political climate that we are in, and the current season that we're in definitely impacts every area of society, of economy, and so many other spaces. So we wanted to have a conversation about education, because education is the passport to the future. Education is that thing that gives us the ticket for great success. And if we're not serious about education and how that impacts our family systems and things of that nature, then that means sometimes the systems fail us when we're not educated. So therefore, we are making a stance tonight, having a meaningful conversation about education. So as we begin our conversation, we wanted to speak with Miss Anari Douglas because she just graduated from high school and now shifting into the college experience. So now, Anari, just kind of share your experience being here in New Britain and really being both in middle school and high school. How was your experience?
Definitely coming from like a Hartford district, transitioning into that like New Britain setting, it was kind of hard to find my way. I was always labeled as like the whitewashed black girl or the preppy black girl, so it was just kind of hard finding my way. And then entering high school, I definitely started getting to know myself and finding myself. I joined sports, joined clubs, just try to like stay within the school and the community. Yeah.
That's awesome, Anari. And I'm glad you kind of voiced how the transition into the school setting here in New Britain and how you were labeled and how it has been a journey for you to find yourself. I would ask, were there any educators or any adult figures that really made a difference in your life to give you that confidence to find yourself?
Yes, I got involved with track my freshman year, and I met Coach Shaw, and he's been a big help throughout all 4 years of high school. I joined soccer. Coach Pat, he was a big help. The Peace Room, Miss Tart, Mr. Hudson, Miss Ty, the deans in the school, Miss Oklowski, Gohagen, they were all just a very good support system and someone I can go to if I need help with anything.
That's awesome. It's amazing to have a powerful support system within the school settings because that really kind of guides how you function. To have that village, I would say, to have that village, particularly in the African-American community, is something about the village. So we are grateful that you have shared your experiences about how the village has formed and shaped you. And we're going to come back to you to share some other things about your experiences. Mr. Williams is an educator, and we want to hear from him about his experience being an educator here in New Britain.
I feel honored and privileged to be an educator in New Britain. I'm a product of New Britain High School. I graduated from there in 2002. I had a pretty good experience in there. Met with a lot of different people, learned a lot of different things. The culture at New Britain High School is unlike anything that you experience pretty much anywhere else besides a college campus. There's so many different cultures from around the world in that building. You get to learn about different people's cultures, whether it's from Southeast Asia or Africa or anywhere around the world. I know a lot of times people in New Britain, it's only really focused on either the Hispanic community or the Polish community, but we truly have an enormous blend of people living in our community. I've been working in the middle school for a while now. This past year I was a substitute teacher for 8th grade social studies. The previous year I taught 8th grade math. And just being in a position to help send kids off and get them ready for high school, it's been a joy. I tell my kids all the time to really take their time and enjoy the journey and not try to rush to grow up and move too fast, because it's one thing you can't get back.
Awesome. And I think, Mr. Williams, is a great thing that you are in the school district, because in many schools, I didn't even know when I was growing up, I didn't have a lot of black male educators. I grew up in a very suburban area, and there were not a lot of black educators. Yeah. So I think that having you there, you're definitely making a positive impact on all of our children here in New Britain. So we appreciate your work. Now, is there anything that you would say that may be a shortfall that you're looking to address?
So we always talk about shortfalls in the educational system. Obviously, everything always comes back to funding, right? The lack of support services for students overall always comes back to whether they can fund it or not. And that doesn't matter if we're talking about after-school sports, after-school programming, support services during the day, having more paraprofessionals, even having more pathways for people to become certified teachers. A lot of times in classrooms, we find we have a decent number of students who need extra support in the classroom, and because we lack the resources to provide more paras in a room, they're not really getting the services that they need to be as successful as they possibly can be. Growing up, we were always told that education is the key to the future, and I believe if we truly valued that, we'd find a way to fund education. We're always told there's not enough money, but that's never the case. It's where the money is spent and where they choose to spend the money on.
I think that's a very profound statement to make about the necessary supports that need to take place within our academic settings, because it takes funding. We understand that is something that we can never ignore. It takes funding to get the job done. Mm-hmm. It does. And I agree, Mr. Williams, that we really need to look at where our dollars and our cents are being invested in, to really look at the bigger picture, because our classrooms need support, not just the teacher, but some of our students need supports. And in order for that to happen, funding must be in place for that. And as we continue our conversation, I think of our president, who wears many hats, but she's also a mother. She's also a grandmother. So she understands this whole gamut of education and the need. So we also would like to hear from her to add some of her thoughts to some of the shortfalls that we need to really look at in education.
Yeah, thank you so much. It's, you know, it's great to hear you all and your experiences. And so I'll talk about my experiences because I grew up in the New Britain School District as well. And so my mother left her corporate job because she saw that there were shortcomings of Black people in the school system. And so she started at middle school. She started with the superintendent as her executive admin, and then she worked her way into being a secretary in the school district to follow me and my brothers in the school district because there wasn't anyone that looked like us. And there was racism against our children in the school system, and my mother became everybody else's mother. And so she would say to them, listen, I want you to get to class, right? And so that was the old school mentality. You get in school and you get educated because no one can take away your education, right? They can take away any other materialistic thing, but they can't take away what you've learned. And so I see that being so different now in the school districts as I look around, that you might not have those people that look like you that are going to encourage you. So when you do have that, that's an opportunity to jump on it because you want those people that look like you, have experienced life like you, can talk to you, and that are relatable. We are really in dire need right now for money and funding for these schools because, again, when I was in school, we had industrial arts programs. Everybody's not book smart. And I say that not to be mean or anything like that, but there's not a lot of kids that are going to go to college and college bound, right? We have to give them the opportunity to learn metals, to learn HVAC, to learn automobile mechanics, all that stuff, because everybody's not going to be a scholar that goes to college. And so you continue to rip that funds out of school. And again, we're losing our kids to the streets because they're not being coddled, taken care of, arms around them to say that they are worth more than what they are being depicted in the news and everything else. So I love this conversation that we're talking about education because it's so important to our communities to be invested as people of color.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Indeed. And we thank you, Ms. Edwards, for sharing this conversation because as she shared about the whole piece of that family support unit, and that village that you shared earlier, Nairi, you know, some of that is missing. I'm also a parent as well, and two of my children, they're in high school, and they share with me about how many students are in the hall all day long. All day long, like some of their friends are not going to class, and I'm like, is anything being done about it? They said, we have the dean, we have this, we have that, but it's just so many in the hallway, or if there's a fight, everybody's running and they're all there. Why aren't y'all in class? I mean, who's out there? And it's been hard to monitor everyone. And we're noticing that not just in the high school, but other schools is trying to monitor to keep things down. And now we're in a technological age that now, you know, them phones are right out when the top fight and those on TikTok and all those types of things. And some of the self-image and self-worth is being impacted because now their business is out there on the street because they're not in class. You know, they're not in class, and we've had so many of our young people in summer school and things of that nature because they were distracted all year. You know, so we kind of think about how we need that village again in the school setting, not just coming in to teach and collect a paycheck and go home, but to really invest in the well-being of our young people. So Anari, since you had just graduated, what motivated you in the midst of all of the distractions, in the midst of all of the things that may be happening in school? What motivated you to keep going?
I definitely feel like my parents and my sister was a big part of my motivation, but honestly just staying involved in school and staying involved with the community, my church, me being youth leader at my church, it definitely pushed me okay, I want to be a pediatrician, so I need to stay doing this and that to get to where I want to get to. I just feel like watching my grades drop, that definitely was okay, I need to get back on top of that, or I see something slip, I need to do this, do that. So I feel like me being the person I am helped me motivate myself and get me to where I am now.
I think that that's amazing. You know, to have that self motivation, and it looks like that you had a goal based upon your siblings, but also in other spaces where you are in leadership. It motivated you that even when your grades slipped, you know, you kind of had something bigger than yourself that's motivating you forward. And sometimes, you know, some of your peers may not always have that, you know, and I think that you are an amazing example of young people who are graduating, even young people who are still in high school, even trying to make that journey. And even as Ms. Edwards said, some students are not looking at the college track per se, you know, but motivation is not just based upon, you know, those going to college, but even those in professions, you know, seeking to do other things. You know, we're still affirming those as well. So I'm grateful that you've kind of shared with us what has motivated you to keep on moving, to keep on trying to strive forward, to continue to do what you do. Now, if you could change anything, what would it be?
I definitely would change like the company I kept my freshman and sophomore year, because those 2 years were like a very rough year for me, just transitioning, getting into high school and finding myself. Definitely my company, I realized those people weren't people for me, and they weren't doing the things I was doing, and I'm like, it's not benefiting me at all, so why would I stay in that circle or in that group? Yeah.
Exactly. I appreciate that. I think that's practical advice for anyone who's watching us. Watch the company that you keep, because the company that you keep will definitely make or break your success. So Anari is encouraging us on this show today that please, please, please make sure that you are watching the company that you keep. Even if you have any young people in your space right now at home, let them hear this word. Do not fall short with the wrong company.
Correct.
But really have the right people around you. And even if you're struggling with that, you can jump back on track. Anari told us that once she realized she did not have the right persons around her, she shifted. She made a change. And we are encouraging you all tonight. So, are there any final comments from our panel?
I would say that I'm very impressed with you, Anari, like understanding, surrounding yourself with good people. And yes, you learned from your mistakes and you grew from that. And so for your friends that you were hanging with in the younger grades, do you see them transitioning now? Do you see them moving in a different direction, more in your direction? Or are they still folks that are still kind of behind the 8 ball?
A lot of them are folks that's still kind of like behind the 8 ball, and I feel like with them, they try to get to where they want to get, but they're not pushing themselves or motivating themselves. Because I see it firsthand, I'm in school with them. So they're not pushing themselves or motivating themselves to get to somewhere great in life.
And do you feel that's a lack of where there's educators or that village again, right?
Yeah.
Do you feel like the village looks at it that Anari's going to be successful, let's take her, right? And let's leave the folks that we don't think are going to be so successful, leave them to the side and not take them under their wing to help them?
No, not really, because I feel like New Britain High has like a lot of educators and a lot of staff that like reaches out and gives that handout. I feel like the students feel like they're too cool to take that help, or they're too cool to go talk to the guidance counselor. Because what I did, I talked to the guidance counselor, and then that got me an opportunity to job shadow under them, and then I got a scholarship. So they don't use those advantages, they don't use that opportunities and help to get to where they want to be.
Mm-hmm. And Spencer, you being in the middle school, how do you see that transition from middle school to high school? Because that's a very difficult time for seeing children leave the middle school, now going to 9th grade and then transitioning to high school.
Yeah, middle school to high school is probably one of the biggest transition periods in someone's life. You're talking about usually you're 13, 14. So for a lot of kids, you're just hitting puberty, you're in the middle of puberty. You're learning about yourself. So by the time you start your freshman year, sometimes you're no longer sure of the friends you had in middle school, right? So you're moving with a new group of people that you're just meeting. And sometimes they can do you justice, you do well with them, or sometimes you fall into the wrong group. I I think on a middle school level, we have to do a better job of preparing kids to go to high school. I think there's some shortcomings in how we prepare them, sending them off to high school, whether it's academically or socially. A lot of our kids, the best way to say this is each one of them comes to us with their own story. Right? If we have 25, 26 kids in a room, each one of them is coming from a different situation from home that a lot of times we don't know about. So we don't know what plagues them when they walk through our doors. We're trying to do the best we can to prepare them. And every teacher has their own way of doing things. We talk a lot about what are the shortfalls. We talk about student services. In a lot of our buildings, we lack those. We lack opportunities for students to really grow into themselves during their middle school years. We're limited on after school activities for them, whether it be our local community organizations not getting funded as they should, or losing funding each year, which means less kids get the opportunity to participate. Or even down to middle school sports, where there's only a limited number of students who can participate on a given team. For example, we may have 30 or 40 kids come out for a tryout, but only 10 or 12 can make the team. What happened to those other 30 kids who wanted to participate? What are they doing now after school? Are they just going home? Are they just in the park? So we have to find more creative ways to engage our students. And I think as we find more creative ways to engage with our students, we'll see better outcomes on the back end.
I love it.
I love it. Indeed, indeed, indeed. Well, this has been an amazing show, And we thank you for joining us for this segment of the People's Mic, hosted by the New Britain branch of the NAACP. Thank you so much for all of the conversation that has taken place. I think that we have heard so much of how we can sharpen the tools that we already have. We've heard some great insight from a student. We've heard great insight from an educator. We've heard great insight from one who grew up in the New Britain school district. So we've had a well-rounded discussion, and now we are challenging each and every one of you watching to listen to these tidbits but take action according to what you heard during this time, so that we can make positive change in our communities through our educational system. So now, as we have shared tonight, we are challenging you and holding you accountable to go forth and be those persons that make positive change in your homes, in your surrounding neighborhoods, so that some of the things or the shortfalls that we have discussed will now become solutions and resolutions, so that we are able to function continuously and that we see positive change in our academic settings. We're grateful that you have joined us, and we ask that you consider joining us once again for the People's Mic, hosted by the New Britain branch of the NAACP. Have a wonderful rest of your day.
Sometimes life just happens. Don't worry. Farmington Motorsports will get you back on the road and at a fair price. From towing to tires, emissions to transmissions.
Our ASC certified techs do it all.
Farmington Motorsports is a family-run business. We're a Napa Auto Center and AAA approved. We work on all makes and models, from preventative maintenance to major repairs.
And every repair is backed by our 2-year, 24,000-mile nationwide warranty.
When life happens to you, don't worry. Farmington Motorsports.